Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is slicedlime and this is episode 9 of Advanced Map Making Tutorials. Last time we spent the episode going through state 2, preparing arenas. We randomized an arena selection and then used a whole series of clone commands to prepare the arena, copy it into a certain arena location so we could play in that location in a random arena that is reusable every time you start the game. Today we're going to be focused on this little state. It's going to be a bit of a shorter thing. It's just a countdown to the game start, so this might be a bit of a shorter episode. However, it's an important one and it has some important nuances in it. Before we get to that though, we're going to follow up with some interesting, insightful comments from last time and answer some questions that came up in the comments of the last episode on preparing the arena. So the first one is by Faro, who asked, couldn't you just place the arena somewhere and then teleport into it and play the game there? And he has an important point, one that I might have failed to mention that clearly last time. This whole setup is simply so that you can go about and wreck this arena and change it up and place the blocks and destroy all the blocks and stuff during the game. If that's not something you need to be doing in your game, like if you're making a parkour game or something similar where you won't be breaking or placing any blocks in any way whatsoever, then of course, skip all of this complicated cloning of arenas and just place your arena somewhere in your world and teleport into it and play the game there. Second comment we're going to talk about is by Muckmuck, who noted cleverly that if you do the cloning of the arena in slices along the y-axis, instead of the X or Z axis as I did. So basically, if instead of copying a row like this, you copy a layer of it along the y-axis from the bottom to the top, then you can do this in a way that I suggested that couldn't be done in the last episode, which is having an armor stand. You summon an armor stand down here, and it moves up by one step every tick and does a clone. And you can use relative coordinates for that then. And you don't have to have our long line of command blocks over there. You just need one command block on a clock. That is a very good point. The reason this works is because the y-coordinate is the same for this arena as for the one way over there at spawn, the one that we're actually going to be playing in. Now that has one very important drawback that I do need to bring up, and that is space. These arenas take up quite a lot of space, and since we're randomizing arena selection, we're eventually going to run out of space to place these arenas in. And if you're expecting that you might get enough arenas that you'll have to start building them on top of each other, then that method is not going to work. For instance, that is the case with entrapment. If you've seen some of the videos where I fly around in the entrapment staging area where all the arenas are, you'll notice that they're starting to get ever so slightly close to the command blocks. So actually I can only add 2 more arenas into entrapment before I have to start stacking them on top of each other. That said, if your slices, so if your X times Z, are small enough that it's feasible to copy one slice at a time, that's probably a better choice than the one I made in the previous episode to do slices. And the reason for that is something I mentioned in the previous episode, and that's, let me take this here as an example. So let's say we have this pillar of planks, and we also have ladders on this pillar with some strategically placed gaps. Now, as our copying process comes along, it's going to be copying blocks here. So it'll be copying this row of blocks, and then it will be copying this row of blocks, and then eventually it's going to copy this row of blocks. And what that's going to do is it's going to copy all of these ladders. And the ladders are all going to go on thin air over in the actual arena. And they're going to go, I have nothing to be attached to, so I'm going to pop off. So all of these ladders are going to pop off. That actually happens in entrapment as well. Some of the arenas have ladders and vines that pop off in the cloning process. An interesting thing to note here is that that ladder will work. And that ladder will work. And that ladder will work. It's only the first one, this one, that will not work. And that is because of the alignment. However, if you were to copy this arena in slices along the y-axis, if you were to do it from the bottom up, then there would be no way for any ladder to have any block that it was attached to where that block wasn't there, because it's copied at the same time. And still, stuff like this would work, because you've copied the blocks that anything is attached to on the top of it already. So if you have that choice, even if you're planning to have so many arenas that you need to perform the copying operation with lots of impulse command blocks, as I did, it's probably a better idea to do it in layers along the y-axis than in slices along the x or z-axis. Now with that said, let's head on over back to our command blocks. Where we ended off last time was we were switching into state 3, that's the countdown, and we did nothing else. If we go over here, we have our long row of cloning command blocks, and then way over here at the end, we have something that kills the cloner, and that sets the game into state 3. So we are entering state 3, but we have nothing that reacts to it. So as is customary, we are going to make some clocks for state 3. Now you've seen these several times before. We're just going to quickly copy this operation here and do state 3. And then this one is going to be always active, repeat, and then after it we're going to have an always active conditional repeat. And that's going to contain the first command that ticks in state 3. And then we're going to have the entering state that's also going to have a test for, but it also has a test for the old state. So the old state is going to be 2. We are entering the state from the ready check, and the state is 3. And then we're just going to switch this on, always active, and this always active conditional, and then we're ready to start. Once we enter state 3, this is going to tick once. The reason for this is that this command block is a repeating command block, but it's conditional on this one, which is only going to evaluate its command successfully in the one tick that we have an old state that is 2 and the state that is 3, which means that we have moved into state 3 from state 2 this tick. We are not going to need to do that much when we enter the state, but we're simply going to set up a few things. First thing we're going to do is to initialize a counter. The counter is just going to be a scoreboard, so we're doing scoreboard players set at E, type equals armor stand, name equals game, and we're going to set its score in a new scoreboard called count to 0. And let's add that scoreboard, scoreboard objectives, add count dummy tick count. Now, what is the tick count? Well, the tick count is something that keeps track of how much time has passed. This state, the waiting state or countdown state, is pretty much only a delay with some fancy features. Why is that? Well, we have just spent some time sending over a massive amount of blocks from over here in these arenas to over there somewhere at our spawn in our actual arena. Depending on how many blocks there were in the chosen arena, and the speed of the connection to a player and so on, that is going to lag different players different amounts. What that means is that players are going to experience quite the lag spike when you do the arena, and it takes a while for players to catch up. What I found with entrapment was that after about 5 seconds, players are starting to catch up, and after 10, they're pretty much certain to be caught up, but you should probably be testing this out on your own map and seeing how players are affected by your clone commands. For this tutorial, we're pretty much just going to replicate the setup for entrapment, a 10-second countdown. But what you see in entrapment is just a 5-second countdown. That is because the first 5 seconds of that countdown are silently counted down, and it's just there to cover up the lag. So how do we count down? Well, actually, we're going to count up. Scoreboard players add at E, type equals armor stand, name equals game, and count 1. And then another block onto that where we started doing something more. Now what we're going to have is in this state, in state 3, we're going to have a counting score. Let's go scoreboard objectives, set display sidebar, count. And we see we have a tick count. And our game is ticking up its count. Now, if you know your Minecraft internals, you will know that the game is running at 20 ticks per second. That means that every 20 ticks of this counter, we have passed a second. We can use this to display helpful messages or to wait a certain amount of time. And what we're going to do is simply display a message whenever we pass a certain tick. So, for instance, let's execute at E and score count equals 100, score count min equals 100. Now, with 20 ticks every second, that means that 100 ticks is 5 seconds. So this will happen after 5 seconds, and it will only happen 1 tick, because the next tick our score is going to have counted up to 101. Then what we can do is a title command. The title commands has a few parameters. First, who to send the title to, let's go everyone. A title or subtitle, we want the full title on this. And then our favorite thing in the whole world, a raw JSON string. Let's put that in. We want a text, and the text is going to say 5. Okay, so if we do scoreboard players set at name equals game count 0 to reset the whole thing, after 5 seconds, we'll get a 5. Well, that's nice. And now we're going to count down to 0. How quick is a nice countdown to 0? Well, you can do 1 per second. That's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a pretty quick countdown. In Entrapment, I simply went for 2 seconds to make it a little bit easier for players to be fully ready. How do we continue that? Well, we just take the same command again, paste it in, but change our tick count. So if we do 2 seconds, that's 2 times 20, which is 40 ticks. And we'll just put that in, and then just change the 5 to a 4, and then keep on doing that. So the next one is 3 at tick 180. And the next one is 2 at tick 220. And the next one is 1 at tick 260. And then we are done. The final one is go at tick 300. So our countdown ends at tick 300. Let's test it out. We first have the 5 seconds of wait, where players just catch up, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Of course, it's up to you what kind of speed you want this countdown, but consider that players who have never played before only have the countdown to adjust to the speed and be ready for the game. Of course, there's one more thing we need to do here. One more very, very important thing. Well, we're saying to go, so we should probably go. Let's take away everything but the selector and put this to 300 again. Well, when we are at the go tick, we should probably move the game into the next state. We do that with scoreboard players set this whole thing state 4. So when we get to tick 300 of our countdown, we move the game into state 4 and start playing. We should be able to see this now as we do the countdown again, and the countdown ends at tick 300, and then the tick count should stop counting upwards. This also illustrates one thing we saw last episode, which is that these state clocks like to tick 1 time even after the state has been switched. The reason for this is that the game decides whether to run this conditional command block based off of the result of this command block the previous tick. Anyway, we are now, if we switch our sidebar into the state objective, we have now progressed into the 4th state of the game, which, if you recall, is game running. So next time we are going to take a look at how to start the game, which is obviously just going to be another state transition, and then start working at our game logic for the actual game. We need to move players into the arena, and we need to start thinking about what the point of the game is. How do we keep track of scores, and when does the game end? That, however, will be next time. As always, if you want to try this out, the link to this world download is available in the video description. And also, I'll be happy to take any feedback or answer any questions about the series, including what kind of things you would like to see in the game logic when we start getting into making the actual game. Until then, thank you for watching. My name is slicedlime, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.